Russ, you want to know the real truth here? Almost every single player who says they want a really hard game, they want to win.
Hi, I'm Russ, and this is the Memory Makers Podcast, the show that helps you create amazing experiences and make more memories. Gang, I got to tell you, we've got a banger of an episode today. I'm actually going to skip the jingle because I'm so excited to get into it. We are being joined by David Spira of Room Escape Artists. And David, thank you so much for joining us. We are about to have a ball in looking at all things escape rooms today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am always excited to talk about escape rooms and all sorts of immersive games.
I love it. Well, so after we finish recording, I'll have to pick your brain because I'm a first-time tabletop RPG player for the new Brandon Sanderson Cosmere Stormlight stuff. And the guys from C-Dub here at the office are being very patient with me, but I may pick your brain for some tips and tricks.
I got you.
I love it. So you have been, and I say this with all love, an escape room power nerd for quite a while.
Oh, I love it. I've never been called that before, and I'm into it.
I love it. So one, I'd love for our listeners and viewers to be able to get a little bit of sense of just what this journey started to look like for you. How did this come together? How did you and your wife, Lisa, then say, hey, this is something that we really want to pour a lot of love and energy into? So give me the full enchiladas, like what started it all and where are we at today?
Yeah, so I'll give you the short version of the story. Back in 2014, I was quite a few years into a career as a experienced designer. I was designing a lot of software, particularly for crisis, a lot of stuff for hospitals, in the energy sector, as well as I was doing a ton of work in the humanitarian space. I was designing a lot of things that, like, if it didn't work the way that you wanted it to, someone was going to die. And so I was under a lot of pressure. I was looking for something a little bit more lighthearted. And that was when I was planning a trip to Budapest with one of my oldest friends. And I looked up on TripAdvisor and found that there was something under the things to do in Budapest. It was called Claustrophilia. It had a lot of 5-star ratings. And I had no idea what it was, but I just started reading, and it was an escape room. And so I immediately fell in love with the idea of this because I grew up on puzzle video games and stuff like Zelda and The Seventh Guest and Myst. And I called up my friend, and we both agreed we were going to do this in Budapest. The next morning, I woke up and I had what I call my entitled New Yorker moment. And if this exists in Budapest, there should be one in New York City. And I found that there was one. It had just opened. And I booked out the entire room. I invited a whole bunch of friends. I didn't tell them what we were doing. I told them that I was pretty sure it was going to take about 90 minutes. I was pretty sure it was going to be fun. And I was pretty sure it was going to be safe. And almost all of my friends came with no extra information. And they found out in the elevator up that we were playing an escape room. And I just, from the second I set foot in the room, was just like, I need as much of this as I can possibly get. And then a couple days later, I met my now wife, Lisa, in a bar after a snowstorm. And we started talking about a whole bunch of things. And one of the things I mentioned was this weird puzzle game thing that I had done. And we talked about all sorts of stuff. I asked for her number. And shortly after we started playing together, we started to meet the owners. And the owners all kept telling us different versions of the same story, which was like, it's the Wild West. We're making this up as we go, and there's no rules. And I started looking at the games, and I was like, well, you're designing interfaces, and there are rules to make a good interface. You don't know them, but I could help you understand them. You're trying to tell a story. There's ways to tell a good story. You're not using them, but they're available. The knowledge is out there. You're using video. Well, there's a century of cinematography knowledge out there. You're building hardware. Well, there's all sorts of people who know how to engineer good hardware. So we started to write about this in review, partially trying to just raise awareness of escape rooms and partially trying to absorb information that would be helpful for escape room creators and putting that back out into the community. And that was our evil plan, was we just wanted to help raise awareness of escape rooms and raise the quality of escape rooms so that there would be more and better escape rooms for us to enjoy.
That's fantastic. I love that. Well, and you and Lisa have even done stuff on, like, you guys did an episode on Marriage Therapy Radio, where it was talking about the parallels between like what's good for, tackling escape rooms, and it also, applies to a happy, healthy life and in a relationship. So you guys are in it.
Thank you. Yeah, we love this stuff. We love the games, we love the people who make them, and we love the people who play them. And it has just been a beautiful opportunity for us to spend the last 12 years or so building a community around all of this.
So is that now the primary focus? That's the job and the gig, or are you and Lisa having other day jobs, so to speak, that kind of go in tandem with this?
Lisa has a day job. She still works in tech, gets us our insurance. I spend a lot of my time doing Room Escape Artist, Reality Escape Pod, and our convention, Reality Escape Convention. I also still take on private design clients for tech, for experience design, whatever it may be. I just don't consult with brick and mortar escape rooms because I don't want anyone to feel like my reviews are like a protection racket, like they need to hire me in order to get a good review. Like I don't want to mess with that at all. So I don't consult with brick and mortar escape rooms.
Totally makes sense. Well, I appreciate that. That again, it's always nice to know of. Ultimately, if we're going to be this force for good and we're going to have this content, we want to make sure that there are no asterisks, that are finding their way into it.
I mean, people have to be able to trust that you have the same intentions that you said you had. And for me, a big thing is making it clear, like, I'm not trying to sell you my consulting services because there are people out there who are good at it. I could stop writing reviews and I could go and do that. But like we're very mission focused, and the mission is growing the community of players, growing the knowledge base of the owners. And this is the best way that we have found to do that.
I love it. So as I was looking through some other things you have, and through these last year, over 14 years now, you've played over 1,300 different escape rooms over that time. That's getting your 10,000 hours in, as Malcolm Gladwell will say.
Yeah, we put in some hours, and for every hour we spend in the game, we're probably spending at least 1 to 2 hours doing analysis and reviews and thinking about it after the fact. So yeah, it starts to add up.
I love it. So let's take that and then dive in, because one of the big things that I want to make sure that we really focus on is where are these kind of differentiating points between, hey, this was a good experience, I maybe haven't done one before, I was able to have a good time, I got the gist of it, versus something that is just on a Mount Rushmore, hey, oh my gosh, this is a game changer, to if you consistently execute on these things for a great experience. And starting with, as you guys are doing reviews, and one, they are very well written. I love that they are candid and also have a good sense of humor and personality that are infused in them as well. It really comes through. What are, how do you balance initially when you're doing an experience? Because if it were me, I'd have like my checklist, right? Of like, okay, did we do this? Did they, these? But that takes you inherently out of the moment and the experience itself and being present. So one, how do you balance that as you're evaluating? And then the second part of that question would be, what are some of those, critical criteria that you guys use to evaluate?
And you've hit the nail on the head. You cannot, at least in my opinion, be a good reviewer if you are in the room reviewing the room while you are playing it. Every once in a while, a thought might creep in, like, oh, wow, this is really bad. Oof. Or, oh, this is amazing. Like that kind of thought can pop into your brain. But for the most part, we try to be in the moment the whole time, accepting whatever it is you're putting in front of us, whatever the reality is that you're presenting to us, we're there. We are the easiest people to get to suspend our disbelief who aren't children.
Okay.
Because we will just roll with it. And then our whole approach, what we even tell our teammates is like, I don't care if you're hating this game. I don't want to hear it while I'm playing, because you might be having a bad time, but I might be having a great time. Mm-hmm. And either way, we'll be able to talk about this at the end when we are all at a bar, having a drink or having dinner or whatever it is we're doing afterwards. there is time. We will all sit down. We will take tons of notes. We'll go through the whole game together. But we do that after the fact. You play and then you analyze. You don't mix the two. In terms of, there was a second part of your question, and I'm going blank on.
What are some of those criteria pieces that you guys will put in?
Right.
So then,
what
and in my head, it's like, okay, yes, we need to look at what's the level of theming, what was the balance of the puzzle play, and like how difficult were some versus others. But, that experience is and we were talking about this before we recorded, like my first experiences with escape room type interactions were those old school point and click, like, okay, click on the mouse drawer or the desk drawer and you get a key and you don't know what that goes to and all of that. There's so much that comes into it and different dialects of these experiences that you can do. So I'd be curious beyond, hey, was the theming good? Was it a bunch of purple bike locks, in something that's supposed to be Leonardo da Vinci's workshop, which was also one of those themes? That and Pharaoh's tomb were like two of those themes that we felt like everybody and their mother was doing when they were first coming out with some of these more thematic rooms. But so what are some of those criteria that you use when you're thinking about, hey, here's the technical X's and O's, here's the emotional connector moments, like what all are you looking for in that evaluation?
The core question that we try to answer is, how well do we feel this game did at the thing it seemed like it was trying to do? Which is not a one-size-fits-all. If you're trying to build a big theatrical experience, we're looking at how you went about building a big theatrical experience. If you're building a small, intimate puzzle game that's really cerebral, then we're going to look at it that way. Our goal for our reviews is to help people understand which games are for them, operating under the assumption that there's no game that's for absolutely everybody. And so it really varies. I can tell you, what I'm looking for no matter what is that there's a good, clean through line, that every piece of it feels like it's part of a whole. And that the escape room is offering me something that's special and that I can only do in your venue. If I am basically just solving a whole bunch of puzzles that I could solve out of a puzzle book or out of a puzzle app on my phone, then I don't need to pay the markup to come to your venue. So I'm looking for what's special about this. Where's the soul?
Yeah. Well, and so much of that then ultimately translates into, again, did it achieve what it was doing? But what was my emotional reaction to either achieving it or being right there? And I love that. Like, what is the soul of it? Because
we don't have any ratings on our reviews. We don't put like a 5-star, 10-point rating, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And a lot of that really is because, one, we don't want to talk down to our audience. We want our audience to decide for themselves if this is the right game for them or not.
Yeah.
And we don't like things that are thought terminating. If we start putting the 5-star rating on there, then people only care about the ones that have 5 stars. And, if we had a rating system, there are some amazing and interesting 4- and 3-star games that are doing really cool things that are absolutely worth playing, even though they're super flawed. And what I'm looking for personally is I would rather play something that is either just categorically exceptional or super interesting.
I love that. Well, and it also speaks to that aspect where, and we found this as we were developing our first escape rooms here, was there was this mindset of it has to be the most difficult experience possible, right? You had your hardcore Rambos that were in there that were like, oh no, like it's got to be this difficulty level. And as we were learning the rules so we could break them properly and kind of deviating from that, because we knew we were developing escape rooms for more like mixed family entertainment centers that have a variety of things that aren't necessarily going for the hardcore enthusiast, but maybe somebody that like hasn't done it before, but liked the idea and had heard of it. And so knowing that was our, kind of journey and path into what we started to do, and then, developed it further from there. But there are some players who want, well, I want the most technically hard, crazy lift that it takes to be able to do that. And some people are like, no, this is much more, we're going for the social fun and the community aspect of it and everything in between.
Russ, you want to know the real truth here? Almost every single player who says they want a really hard game, they want to win.
Yes.
Players want to win.
Yeah.
Particularly in North America, particularly in the United States, but also in large parts of the world. One of the only countries where escape rooms are popular, where truly hard escape rooms are a thing that people get excited about, is Japan. Everywhere else, your players, they want to win. And I recommend not putting difficulty scaling on your website. Don't tell people this is the easy one, this is the hard one. Tell them they're all about equal, because people who don't know what they're doing, they will go in, they will lose, and then they will be upset.
Right.
Because that's what people want. And how do I know that that's what people want? Any company that is tracking the return rate on their customers will tell you that they have a much higher rate of return for guests who won the previous time.
Yeah. Well, and also we looked at it from this standpoint of, okay, because it's growing and at the time and not everybody knew about it, like you want to have some opportunities for them to have success. And so instead of us like where it was, okay, well, this is the success rate or this or that, it's like, get away from that. Like these people have already given you their money and their time. You are now there to facilitate them having a good time and feeling like there was value for them to do it. And so when we were looking at the puzzles and how we were engineering and the clues and how those things all stacked, it was like, we want to make sure that every, let's call it 85% of the people that play are on the last puzzle or have solved it within that time frame. If time expires, we want to make sure that we can help guide the experience. And to your point where it's like, well, I want the hardest ones. No, they actually really want to win. We joke with our clients when they're doing onboarding and training of like, you're going to get the bachelor party in here. They're going to tell you that they only want the hardest level clues because, they want to go gung ho on it. And then 27 seconds in, they're begging for, give me the easy T-ball kind of stuff because I need that help.
Because they're also drunk.
Yeah.
So like, I think, what you're looking for is you're looking for a mix of, your core components of escape room gameplay are puzzles, tasks, and challenges. Most escape rooms mostly just have puzzles. And that's fine. That's what made me fall in love with escape rooms. I enjoy a good puzzle as much, probably more than the next person. But there are lots of other things you can incorporate in there. You can incorporate different types of challenges, whether it's physical ball tossing things or, having to, attach some poles together and reach in and fish a key out. That's a task, that's a challenge. You can also have social engineering challenges. Maybe there's a character you have to convince to give you something. You can have tasks. Tasks are things like turning on the lights. It's things like, whatever it is that feels normal in the space that you are creating, that isn't even a challenge, but people do them and they feel organic and they breathe life into the space. So thinking more dynamically about that, remembering to maintain the immersion. Adults are bad at allowing themselves to be immersed in something, and they need the help. They need, the more that the environment and the things they're doing within it are reinforcing that they're in another world, the better they're going to, the easier they're going to find really surrendering to the experience. And that's what you want. And then beyond that, you just want good hinting. And hinting is an essential piece of this because, a lot of, both players and owners see it as like, oh, it's a failure. And it's like, no, it's just a player saying like, we're stuck and we're not having fun right now. And we want the fun to start again. And a hint is a good way to do that. But they don't have to be auditory hints spoken over a walkie-talkie or from a voice of God microphone or from a, text on a screen. Like a lot of the finest hinting that you'll find globally is lighting. A light flickering in the right spot that is drawing people's attention to where they need to go and focus. That goes a very long way.
Yeah. Well, and that I think really comes from to your point, how do we continue the story and inject the help where it needs to, but do it in a way that doesn't, feel like we're doing kind of a hard stop in the middle of the process, for sure.
Also, a lot of players hate asking for that hint. They feel like they've been defeated. They feel like they've done bad, like they're dumb. And one of the best ways to make an experience really good for people is to not make them ask. All of a sudden, some of the lights dim and there's a spotlight on one thing. They're not thinking I just received a hint, or just one light just starts flickering a little bit more, and all of a sudden they're drawn to it like a moth to the flame.
Yeah.
And they have no idea that they were just given a hint. They think I solved that by myself without any help, and I am proud, and I like this game.
Nice. Yeah. Well, and that's that Jedi level infusion with it, right? Because it's easy. And there were points where you were also mentioning, there were times where we felt like we were over engineering like the complexity of a puzzle or anything else. And it's like, it doesn't have to have 13 subroutines that you're running through this thing in order to get it to go. I mean, when we even went to Pigeon Forge and we were playing a bunch of different escape rooms because they were popping up down there like crazy. And it was, oh my gosh, yeah, like we don't have to have the, auto resetting lock and the this and that. It's like sometimes it's a magnet, a magnetic pole that I can go and do some physical elements too. And yeah, so there's, I think ultimately and we talk about this with other attractions of don't fall in love with technology for technology's sake. Like fall in love with what it does to further the actual experience or enhance it in some way potentially. But like ultimately, if that needs to be more icing on the cake than the true, chassis of the vehicle, so to speak.
I like to think about this a lot in terms of like magicians. A mediocre magician is going to go and buy a whole bunch of tricks that they think are cool and put them into a show. A really talented magician is going to ask, what is the arc I want to take people on? What is the effect that I want to create? And what are the most interesting ways to find the right effects to accomplish those goals? Escape rooms, immersive experience, I don't care what you're building. It's all kind of the same way. If you're thinking that I have this particular piece of hardware and I must force this into something, maybe you'll succeed. But you'll have a much higher rate of success by dreaming up the thing you want and figuring out what is the most cost-effective, efficient, easiest to maintain, most reliable way for me to achieve that effect.
Absolutely. Let me shift gears a little bit on us and say, we have a number of folks that will come to this and they're brand new to the family entertainment or out of home entertainment industry. And they may have a certain idea of, oh, okay, well, this is what we want to put in. And then that changes and evolves as they're developing the concept. Are there helpful or certain things that like, hey, if we want to do escape rooms and we want to do them well and have it be a really solid experience, but we're not necessarily the most tech savvy people, right? And there are clearly like there's software, there's back end stuff that makes all of that stuff a lot lighter of a lift. But what would beyond what we've already talked about, is there anything else that you would say, hey, if you're thinking of creating these storylines or experiences, here's, just from the operations side, like some high level pieces of, hey, do you have to does it have to be an hour or does it have to be a half an hour? Like, can it be, different varied lengths? And again, I think I'm assuming based on what we talked about, like ultimately it's what serves the story, but what are some of the biggest benefits that you see for people that are looking to add escape rooms as far as what that does that they may not be able to do any other way?
My number one piece of advice might surprise you. It is go play. Go play a bunch of games. If you're thinking about building an escape room, go play a ton of escape rooms. If you're thinking about opening an FEC, go find a whole bunch of FECs. Find ones that are doing it well. Find ones that are doing it poorly. Go out, take a vacation. Go to the Netherlands. Go to Montreal. There are some amazing escape rooms in both of these places. There's places that you should go to and see what the cutting edge looks like, because that is where you will see what the state of the art looks like. And it'll give you a sense of how to expand your imagination, but also go play bad stuff. Play stuff that you will hate, because you will learn so much from the games that make you miserable.
Yes.
You will learn all sorts of, it's so much easier to learn what not to do than it is to learn what to do. Because what to do is the result of like the right craftspeople and the right tech talent and having the right amount of space. And there's a lot of different things that go into making something really special. But just learning how to carve out all of the things that are not fun, that's great. And I hear people on your show talk about it all the time, where like, you start off an employee outside of the building and you're like, what do you see right now? Because this is where the experience starts. That kind of thing. There's so many, like there's, how do you get to average? Carve out all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
How do you get from average to good? Start making really good stuff.
Yeah.
But like, that's my number one thing. And if someone is saying, well, I can't afford to take a vacation and play before I do this, then I humbly suggest to you that you might not have enough money to succeed in themed entertainment.
Yeah. Well, and we run across that even when we have folks that have come to us and they're at an Amusement 360 event or something else, and we're talking about a specific attraction like laser tag, and I'll say, hey, raise of hands, who's played laser tag in the last 10 years? And invariably, you'll have people that are ready to invest significant money into a full ecosystem of entertainment, and this is going to be one of their primary earners, and they have not done that, right? And it's just, this needs to your point, and you may not be, your ideal client or other things, but just going through and not being nose blind to it, or being able to anticipate where some stumbling blocks in an experience are, and thinking about who the guests are that are going to be coming and how would they, respond to those kinds of things. It's just so critical. You can't do these things in a vacuum if it's going to have a significant emotional, meaning to the people that are doing it.
100%. And like, I jokingly call my design process design with contempt.
Okay.
I whatever it is I'm designing, whether it's a podcast or a convention or an escape room or a piece of software, I will immerse myself in other things that are like it. And I will constantly ask myself, what sucks about this? And how can I either turn that into a positive or engineer it out of the equation?
Yeah. Well,
but you can't do stuff like that if you don't go out and experience them.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree.
And that's not saying you have to play 1,300 games. I'm notably nuts.
But at least one.
Yeah, I would say at least 10.
A baker's dozen, would not hurt with that.
I would say modestly, you should play 10 really different games from one another, from a couple of different, from a number of different companies. See what the chains look like. See what the franchises look like. See what all of the companies are going to look like in your area. See what is the most popular game in your region, because you're going to be judged against that. And escape rooms, immersive entertainment in a lot of ways is, you should go to the Netherlands or Montreal and see what's going on there. But this is a lot of like, you don't have to outrun the bear. You have to outrun the slowest person in your area. Yeah. And that is, you should know, what are you benchmarking against? And if you don't know what your competitors look like, and I'm not saying like you go there and like copy your competitors or be rude to your competitors, but like just know what they're about, know what their strengths are, know what their weaknesses are, and know what your customers are expecting based off of what they have seen around you.
Well, and when we're chatting with folks, a lot of times comes down to, it's like, what's going to make you different and unique? Like, and it doesn't have to be, and a lot of times we'll get, and it's an understandable starting point where they're like, we want to have the best customer experience. And it's like, great. What does that look like though? Like what, that is a great goal to have. it's super hard to achieve. And it's going to be one of those things that you are continually turning the knobs and the levers, pardon the pun, to unlock this, and it's something that is always going to be like that goalpost moves, right?
It really does.
And people really look at it of like, okay, well, Disney does this. Great. Disney also puts billions of dollars into this. But what is the fundamental of what they're doing? And then how can you, distill that down into its basic form and have that? And it's like, okay, are you going to power wash the sidewalks of your venue every day like what Disney does with all of the streets? No, but it's consistent, clean, environment where we're thinking about those kinds of things. So many of these pieces where it's like, okay, great, we can go to Budapest or we can go to Montreal and we can go to the Netherlands and we can see these cutting edge, amazing things. But, okay, why did we like that? What was it about that, right? And the 5 whys, of kind of peeling back layers of the onion of like, well, why was that? Why did I like that? Okay, well, why did they do it that way? Why did it? And so that way you actually start to have, a true, I don't know, at least at its core, an anecdotal bro science approach to what typically works well versus does not.
The other thing, and like easier said than done for some people, treat your employees well. People spend a lot of time asking what is the customer experience and saying we're going to have the best customer experience. What's your employee experience? Do you have a good employee experience? Because if your employees don't feel like they're valued, like they're paid well enough, like they're getting enough hours, like they can take care of themselves, you're asking that person to give an exceptional customer experience. That person doesn't have an exceptional employment experience.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. Well, and you are preaching to the choir over here because we chat about it. And I even tell people, I'm like, listen, take it with a grain of salt, but we can sell attractions, but if you have nobody there to drive it and foster what the experience is, like that's a critical part of the other side of the coin. And it's like, don't buy a Ferrari if you're just delivering pizzas with it. You need to have you need to pour into the team, teach them how to take those sharp turns and those accelerations and everything else, like empower them and foster that culture of like, what are we here to do? We are here to create experiences for people to celebrate and escape. So if we are going to show up in a mindset and in the ability to do that well, we have to take care of each other on that front. And so I absolutely agree.
Yeah. I've been in companies where the employees care so much about the games and they know so much about them and they want to make sure that we saw everything that was special about it or that they felt was special about it. I have also, in one remarkable instance, visited an escape room company where the game master was one of the most disgruntled people I've ever seen. He was sitting there and we walked in and he was just like, this place is awful. I haven't seen my boss in more than 6 months. And yeah, the game is over there. You can go play it. And then afterwards, we were getting ready to leave. And the guy was like, I just want to make sure that you see all of the things that I think are bad about this game, because I keep telling the owner and the owner doesn't listen to me. And maybe if you put it in your review, there's a chance he'll listen to you because he won't listen to me.
Wow.
So like that's an extreme example in 1,300 games that has only ever happened once. And we have more reviewers. None of our other reviewers have ever had an experience quite that exceptional. But like that is an extreme example. But I think this person is articulating a lot of things that employees do feel. Your employees, if they're running a game over and over and over again, they know what isn't good. They know what needs to be fixed. And when they don't feel like they have a voice or that their perception matters, they do burn out. They do get upset. And that's not to say that employees necessarily know the right solution to the problem, but they definitely know what the problems are. Yes. And you should listen to them and figure out the right way to solve the problem. And maybe that's their suggestion, but oftentimes it isn't. That's not a slight on them, but use your employees. They are watching.
Well, and it's your front line, right? I mean, it's like they're your caddies on the golf course, right? They know, hey, this green is in rough shape over here, or hey, don't try to hit that ball through, don't try to split those trees. You need to go around this way. Like it's And it's interesting. When I first started in the industry, one of the biggest buzzwords at the time was like empowerment and autonomy. And it's like, again, simple concept in theory of, okay, well, like we need to listen and we need to let them have control and everything else. But it's one that is rarely executed consistently. And some of it's just because, hey, if I'm a business owner and I'm trying to spin all of these plates and I'm working on the business, not in the business, like you have to have an engineered approach to make sure that like the crazy curveballs don't get in the way of you keeping the core elements of what a good guest experience is running on time and making do that. Because it's like, okay, well, if we never clean the closet, it's not going to get cleaned, man. Like we have to protect time and create that space for those conversations to happen. And yeah, it's you can start off with something that's absolutely incredible and stunning and has all of this, but if there are missed opportunities and everything else, it's like that's what's going to really, really translate to the guests.
Absolutely.
And the players.
And to kind of pull this around to my point is like, really, a really good escape room can be made bad by bad customer service. And a pretty mid escape room can feel pretty good with good customer service. The way that you are treated matters a lot. And we don't cover this in our reviews. It's a weakness. It's a self-admitted weakness of our reviews because we go in knowing full well we're getting weird customer service. Sometimes it's weird good. Sometimes it's weird bad.
Okay.
But we know that we're not getting normal. And so we don't feel like we are in a position to judge what normal looks like in our reviews. And so we, broadly speaking, don't.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a fair approach for that because it's okay. We are not the norm, and you may have somebody who is an avid follower and is starstruck and is falling over themselves. It may not be the same thing that they're doing for the next group, and there it may be, but yeah.
We call, it doesn't happen all the time, but like we call it the Room Escape Artist Escape Room Renewal Program, where we, we're walking into a game and I can see all of the locks have been changed out. There's fresh locks. I can smell fresh paint. I have in one exceptional and wonderful instance picked up an object. I walked into the room. I was smelling glue. I picked up something. I was holding it for a minute or two. I go to try and put it down and realize that it's crazy glued to my hand.
Oh no.
And it was just because the owner was like, right before we came, he was like looking through the room and being like, oh no, this isn't exactly as it should be. I'm going to glue this back together. And it didn't have enough time to set.
Well, what's funny about this too is we make the joke sometimes of, hey, our house is dirty. We need to invite people over so that way we can actually like have a fire under our rear end to get things put away and all of that. But it's the same thing with operators where it's like, hey, are you having a news crew come over that's going to do some stand throughs? Like what you're seeing and wanting to change in those moments are the same things that all of your guests have been seeing for quite a while. And so making sure that you're either creating opportunities that force you to do that on a regular basis, but more so making sure that the employees and everyone else like have tools and methods to be able to implement those changes or give that TLC when and how it needs, because it's so easy to get nose blind to stuff.
Yeah. My personal feeling is that either a manager or an owner should be walking through once every week or two and fiddling with, just do the walkthrough of everything. Yeah. And, use your bathroom, flush all of the toilets. How does it smell in there? Is there enough soap? Like whatever it might be, like you need to be on top of this stuff.
Yeah.
I know whenever I walk into a company and the bathroom smells like something died in it and there's not enough soap and there's no paper towels left, my assumption is this company is in jeopardy. Because if you're not caring about the bathrooms, there are other things you aren't caring about. Definitely.
All right, last little bit before we wrap up, I want to do a little rapid fire of your Mount Rushmore. So I'm assuming it may still be Budapest, but farthest distance or location that you've traveled to do an escape room experience?
Australia.
Ah, good day. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Would have been Melbourne, Australia.
Okay. Fantastic. What was the experience that you did there?
to be honest with you, I can't even remember. It was a long time ago. Lisa and I actually took our honeymoon to Australia. And so we didn't play a lot of escape rooms, but we played a couple there and had a decent time.
You're on your honeymoon. Okay,
Yeah, that wasn't the primary
We're
goal.
wrapped in newlywed love and yeah, all of that. So that's understandable. Most unique storyline that you've played or that comes to mind?
Oh, gosh. Good unique or bad unique?
Dealer's choice.
We once played a game that I don't believe exists anymore. It wasn't great, but the premise was that we were hired by a guy to go and investigate and figure out where his missing wife was. And we walk into this room and it looks like it's just like kind of an old study filled with lots of used old furniture. And everything we open just has Twinkies in it. Twinkies everywhere.
Okay.
And the story was that she was an alien sent by her people to Earth to get the resource that they use for energy or sustenance. I can't remember what. I think it was energy. And the thing she was hoarding for these aliens was Twinkies.
Okay. So he's taking his Twinkie passion and creating an experience out of that. I can respect the effort.
That's probably the most unique. I'm not going to say it was like a stellar unique, but certainly most unique.
Okay. I love that. Any thing that comes to mind for the most either dramatic or unique reveal once a puzzle was done? You know, when we started adding in like pneumatic doors or hidden, drawers, like that's all fun. But anything that really just knocked your socks off, like when you discovered it and whether it was a prop or it was the way that the puzzle was done, like what unique reveals stand out to you?
I won't say where it is, but there is a roller coaster simulator used as a transition at an iconic escape room.
Okay.
And it was really cool that they did that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll have to get that offline from you so that way if I'm traveling in that area.
I got you.
Hardest solve. What the most difficult or one of the most difficult rooms that comes to mind for you?
Oh, gosh. I mean, the early days had a lot of games that in the very early days of escape rooms, we had a lot of like 1%, 2%, 3% escape rate games, which we not so affectionately called inescapable rooms with a margin for error.
Okay.
And some of these just had broken puzzles in them. Yeah, I can't think of like a specific one. Sure. But there was a lot in the early days that was like, why would you ask your players to do that? Why do you think that's an acceptable leap to make?
Fair. Okay. Well, and the very last question that I'll ask for you before we wrap is then any favorite audiobook or podcast or quote or kind of North Star that you've had either for a long time or a short amount of time that's made a positive impact for you?
There's a quote from Colin Powell that I learned when I was in like high school or something like that. I'm going to butcher it, but the quote was, leadership is solving problems. The second your people stop coming to you with problems is the second you have failed as a leader, because your people either believe that you can't or won't solve their problems.
I like that.
I think about that all the time.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense as well, on a physical, tangible level with your line of work, as well as a good way to evaluate approaching life. So I really appreciate that. David, this has been an absolute pleasure. We're going to have you on again. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Just say when. This has been a delight talking to you about this stuff. And I don't even think we really even got into the escape roominess stuff that...
We've got part 2s, part 3s coming your guys' way, because there's more for us to dive in and really sink our teeth into. So I appreciate your time. Thank you all so much for joining us on this episode. If you liked what you heard, we always appreciate a 5-star review if we've earned it. Also, if you guys have ideas or topics that you want to make sure that we're uncovering or diving into further, always welcome that up. Hit us up on social media, let us know, and we'll get that into the mix. And big shout out, as always, to Mikey Mike on the 1s and 2s working the Ultranet for us, and we appreciate you all so much, and we'll catch you on the next one, Troublemakers.